Welcome to A Lit Passage, Conversations in Reading and Living. I'm James Bubar. If you're new to the channel, please remember to subscribe. Your support really helps our channel grow, and we really appreciate it. Tonight in Izmir and afternoon in Austin, Texas, I'm thrilled to be joined by Matt Wilson, co-founder and CEO of Under30 Experiences, and the host of Live Different podcast, which, Matt, that's a great podcast, by the way. You got really cool guests and really informative but inspiring conversations. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. It means a lot, James.
I love that you incorporate the kind of personal finance to, living differently, but sustainably and, in a full context of how to make, I guess, the most of your dreams. It's really cool. So people should check that out. That's Live Different podcast. And he's also the author of the Millennial Travel Guidebook, which is what we'll be talking about mostly tonight. It will be released August 13th, but it is available now for download. That's correct, Matt?
That's right. You can pre-order it on Amazon.
Okay, great. And we'll have a link to the specific website for the book so people can check that out. Matt, it's really a great work. I mean, it's personal, it's informational, of course, but it's really inspiring. And in some ways, it's a little maddening to read these days with so many closed borders. But it offers a lot more than just the powerful and appropriate information you have about the how-tos of traveling today in that big sense. But it's really inspiring. So I'm looking forward to talking to you about it. And it will be officially released August 13th. But as Matt mentioned, it can be accessed now via the link below. And I know you're really busy. You have a beautiful new daughter. You are planning Under 30 experiences in the U.S. And you're also in a business that is facing a little uncertainty right now with global travel restrictions and concerns. So I really appreciate you taking the time out from all of those pressing matters to talk with us about your book and your life so far. So thanks for joining us, Matt.
You got it, James. A lot going on, but wouldn't have it any other way. Well, I can think of some things I changed during these times, but,
right.
Doing the best we can.
Right. And how does it feel to be ahead of the Austin wave? You've been there a few months, and now, the Gigafactory's coming with Elon Musk. So, he followed you. He followed you guys to Austin. So that's nice.
Yeah. Intel, I think, came in the last year or so. It's just crazy. Of course, Google and Apple as well. It just seems like, it's a great place to be. So it's, happy to be here. Well,
hopefully that incredible live music scene gets in full swing soon with the issues with coronavirus now. And of course, the famous festival, South by Southwest, will be back on soon. Austin is an incredible place. But, I was thinking today in this time of, economic uncertainty, upheaval in our daily lives. Everyone seems to be kind of swimming in a sea of sad stories, or at least worrying situations. And stories, we need them to keep going in many ways. So before we get into your book, I thought if you wouldn't mind sharing your story about how it came to be in that larger sense. Because the last time we spoke in person was about 8 years ago and almost a month, because it was at a pretty wild and jubilant birthday party. And you were, I always admired your work with your startups in New York and also with the kind of tech industry there. You were really working hard. And the next thing I know, everything changed. And now you're where you are today. So if you could talk a little bit about that, it would be great.
Well, jubilant is quite a way to describe that party, James. We were having a great time, and people listening probably have heard what it's like to live in New York, and especially, downtown. And I'm certainly glad I experienced it, as I hope you are as well. But it catches up with you after a while, I would say. Everybody has that kind of love-hate relationship with New York, and I think I included in the book
You
my
did.
kind of screw New York moment, just taking my mattress and
Yeah.
putting it in the elevator, and the doorman or whoever, the maintenance guy, asked me, "Well, where do you want me to put it?" I said, I don't care. Put it on the curb. Like, probably shouldn't sleep on that thing again. So it was just, it was like I packed up my family's '97 Subaru station wagon with my stuff, and kind of left it in a heap in their guest room. And yeah, I was out. Just took off. I went to Iceland, and was able to reconnect with so many things that I loved in just in nature. And I mean, it's in Iceland, it's nature on steroids. You got the waterfalls and the glaciers and the rainbows and mountains and northern lights and the midnight sun, all of these different things, Viking people, just an amazing place. And I got there and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Literally had that kind of epiphany moment, and went up to the top of this mountain, actually the one that stopped all the air traffic in 2010 between North America and Europe. So Eyjafjallajökull, it's my Icelandic is not perfect, but that's basically how you say it. But we were standing up there on this glacier, looking over at the sunset. It was like 11 p.m. And this Viking guide friend of mine, Siggy, cracked open some whiskey, and he just wanted to hang out and talk about life on top of a glacier in Iceland. And I was like, okay, yeah, I should be doing this more often. And then reflecting upon just being in New York, and it kind of got to the point where I was kind of going to the same bars, having the same conversations, caught up in that dating scene that can be so vicious and really toxic at some level.
Right.
And everybody's just kind of chasing their tails. And so I just thought, wait a second, why are all my friends chained to their desk and nobody can really hang out or do anything in the outdoors? And so I said, no, I want to do this for a while, and ended up that we were able to open this up to so many other people that also felt the same way, that they kind of felt trapped in their daily routine.
So let me ask you about that a little, because how soon did you have this life-changing path emerge, and then you started to build it into a business, so to speak? I mean, was there time where you were just kind of traveling more on your own and it came to you slowly that this is something you want to share? Or was that Iceland experience enough? Like, not only do I want to do this, but I want to help other people do this and engage the world in the largest sense.
So it was actually on that glacier, in that same conversation, this guy Siggy said, he was a young entrepreneur, and he started his business when that volcano went off. That was in his backyard. The BBC came to his little tiny town of 500 people in the south coast of Iceland, and they said, hey, can anybody help us go and check out this glacier? And they said, oh, we'll go knock on Siggy's door. And so the BBC literally knocked on his door and said, hey, I hear you're you're on the rescue team. Can you bring us up there? And he was like, you want to go up there? Okay, yeah. I mean, this happens all the time, but sure, I'll bring you up to the top of the volcano. To him, it was nothing. And then he realized, wait a second, there's something here. This is what I want to do with my life. And so I was inspired by his story, of course. And he also went to New Zealand to go and travel, and that's another one of the world's adventure capitals there on the South Island.
Well, of course, that's where they have Middle Earth, right? Of course, it's Tolkien's Middle Earth.
Yeah,
so of course it's
all these
adventure capital of the world. Yeah,
exactly. And so he wanted to do that. This was right before Iceland tourism became popular. Before it got Instagram famous like it is now. And so we had that conversation. He said, well, do you think we could bring people from the United States over here? And I said, yeah, sure. Why not? I know plenty of people from the U.S. And
Wow.
so right there, we started kicking around ideas. There was a conference in Iceland called the Startup Iceland Conference.
Wow.
And we had this blog, Under30CEO.com, that had
Right.
close to 500,000 readers a month at that
Wow.
point. So
Wow.
I called my business partner with at Under30 CEO, Jared, and said, hey, why don't we do like a retreat here to Iceland? We've got the guides. It's an amazing place. We'll go to this conference. And so that's how the very first Under30 experience, that's why we have
Wow.
this
Wow.
silly name, even though it's open to people ages 21 to 35.
Yeah.
That's how, we had that recognition. It stuck. And now, of course, it's open to anybody who wants to come. They don't necessarily have to be entrepreneurs or anything like that. But that is the real story.
Well, you know what's incredible about that story is you often see or hear stories like this from people who something crystallizes within themselves, an understanding of what they want to do, but then it takes a while to materialize. But it's really unique that you not only had the kind of vision of what you wanted, but also the plans started to happen immediately, and you had this whole new relationship all at once. It's an amazing story.
Thank you. James, if you know I think it's the Colby personality tests, and I remember I took it years ago, but I'm a quick start is on this personality test. So if I have an idea, I have to call somebody and put it into action, or else I'm on to the next idea. So I'm glad we ran with this one.
Yeah. Well, let me darken the picture a little, because often when we're looking back on paths that have proved to be successful in a lot of ways, often what gets lost in the conversations are those dark moments of struggle, or when you could have given up. Or did you have any of those? Like maybe it didn't grow as fast, or it started and halfway through you're like, oh, I can't do it. Or were there any moments like that where you really had to just say, okay, no, I still got to believe in what we started and keep going?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at first, the original idea, just retreats for entrepreneurs, that's not, that's scalable to a point, right? But that's not the biggest idea. That's not the biggest idea in the world by any means. It was a small niche thing that could have helped our another revenue stream with Under30 CEO. So that was where most of our struggle took place, was when we had this blog, Under30 CEO. We were a startup media site, and we were publishing news, advice, interviews, articles, and one of the ways to monetize a media site is through events.
Right.
So we spoke many times about putting on conferences, or, hey, it would be a lot better than bringing 15 people to Iceland would be bringing 50 people to Iceland, and having renting a resort and having a huge blowout. And that would be cool as well. But it wasn't, we just knew that it wouldn't have that same type of connectivity among the attendees. And we didn't want it to be a big coach bus thing or anything like that. And so, but most of the struggle was just getting this Under30 brand off the ground in the beginning, starting in Poughkeepsie, before we met in New York. We were just, Jared and I were just two broke kids coming out of school. We started our website with $500 between the two of us, and we got it developed in India. There were misspellings in the header. It was, but we did what we had to do. But then to figure out how do we monetize this crazy idea, that's where most of the struggle really went. Once we found, we built the company to 6 figures, but we still had to figure out, all right, well, what else is going to, it was difficult. And so once we came upon the travel stuff, and we hit it at the right time, of course, and I would say we're certainly our most difficult time right now being COVID.
Right.
This is nuts.
Right.
That's another story.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting in hearing that point of view is often the struggle between the old and the new. As an old idea you poured a lot of time in and energy was morphing into something else, and figuring out how to go with that flow, in some sense let go and discover new things. And now Under 30 Experiences is a huge offering for people to experience their world, but their lives and themselves in a different way. So I really admire it. And you have a great Instagram page for a lot of those adventures. You know, it's exciting. So when I was thinking about your book, I was saying that what I really liked about your book is that it was a travel book. It was, let me say this, it was a life book disguised as a travel book. You know, of course.
I really like the way that you put that.
Yeah, well, you can quote me on that if you like, but you've already printed it. But you can steal that. But it's true. I was like, this is a book that is about living in disguise of a book about travel. Though you have some great advice, very particular, very timely, important advice, especially in international travel. But what I really admired about it is the living aspects. And I want to start with, just the fact that you have as the epigraph that amazing Langston Hughes poem, Harlem, about what happens to a dream deferred. And it seems like your book is not the answer to that, but is helping other people answer that, or prevent that, or respond to that amazing poem by Langston Hughes. And I love that you open this book about travel, and the first chapter is about fear. So I don't really have a question, but I just thought if you want to take any of those notions as the author and think about that.
No, life is short. Look, my dad just passed away recently. He was 68, which is just not long enough. He was a captain in the Coast Guard, and he worked in corporate America for a long time. And I remember just growing up and seeing his dissatisfaction with it. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to be a full-time captain and take people out on charters and sail to Bermuda and to the Virgin Islands and all this kind of stuff. And, unfortunately, right when he started to be able to do that for himself, he was able to enjoy that for a few years once he was kind of semi-retired. But then he got this horrible neurodegenerative disease, and
so sorry.
He had to hang that up. And look, he was still out on the boat until pretty much his very last days. He still wanted to go out this season. When we kind of all knew he wasn't going to make it. I think he was in hospice still talking about going out on the boat, or he couldn't even speak. But hey, Dad, you want to go out on the boat? Right. He'd give you the thumbs up.
Wow.
But just after seeing that kind of thing, you just know that life is so short, and you got to go out and forget, fuck fear, I guess, and say you got to put yourself first. And you need to be kind and responsible and stuff like that. So I'm not talking about a selfish type of thing, but beating back that fear and saying, no, I am going to go out and do something, like you being in Turkey. This is when you reached out, I was like, whoa, James is in Turkey right now. That's great. That's crazy. How did you? And I was instantly like, hey, that's a risk that you took. That is not the common path. And sure, yeah, telling your folks or your friends or family, probably some people are looking at you like, what are you doing, man? Right. But getting over that is so important.
Yeah. Well, and the great thing about travel, and you deal with this in the book wonderfully, way beyond the how-to stuff, is that travel can be that metaphor we need for encountering and ultimately overcoming fear. And the trip doesn't have to end. It doesn't have to be this episodic thinking. It can continue to then manifest in other parts of your life. And your book captured that well. So sometimes trip doesn't have to be escape and then, escape from your daily life and then come back and regenerate and go back into your daily life. But it can be something that, I think this is what your Under 30 experiences offer. It can be the stepping stone to something else, something you can build on. It's sustainable. And you talk about that wonderfully in the book. But I think that's in the mission with Under 30 Experiences, yeah?
Totally. And a lot of our travelers do work in the corporate world,
right.
But because their trips are short, they can come on 2, 3, 4 of them, some people a year, and we're really more selling people lifestyle, which when you talk about the book, it's a book about life. That's what people are buying at the end of the day. They need a change from their routine. And yeah, sure, they might have to work hard and sit at a desk between the hours of 9 to 5. But we're even seeing that shift now in a post-COVID world, right, where people are going to be more and more mobile. And this is going to be built into people's lives. And people are going to be happier because of it. And that's my big hope.
Yeah, and I think when you said the aspiration of not necessarily a life change that you experienced, but a shift in how you're probably living whatever life you decide, even if you're going back to the same job, you want something to shift that is sustainable and continuing to grow. And it makes me think of, in the book, you talk a lot about the importance of local community engagement. And I can tell, I've traveled all over the world. I mean, I grew up in Belgium, but I go to Russia all the time because, of course, my fiance's there, and Turkey is middle of the world, so I've been everywhere. And there's really a big dichotomy between tourism and travel. And tourism is often that skimming along the surface. And what you're going for, and what you write about so wonderfully, is that engagement with the local community and relationships, language, projects. Could you talk a little bit about how you wrote about that, why you wrote about it, and then maybe how you manifest that in the experiences? Because I think it's crucial for enhancing our understanding, our compassion, our empathy.
Absolutely. And I think the best one-liner that I heard, and I don't know that I put it this way in the book, but somebody said very simply that tourists usually go to a place and take and consume, and travelers go there and they actually are able to contribute in some way, shape, or form. And so whether that just means you're being kind and polite and respectful and supporting the local economy and actually taking interest in the people, that goes a very long way when you're literally contributing to the economy, how people put food on their plate. And if you walk in there like a snotty tourist and you hope that things operate the same way that they do at home, and you stay at a resort with walls that are literally designed to keep the rich people in and the poor people out, then you might as well have just gone to Fort Lauderdale and stayed on the beach there, right? You would have saved some airfare, probably.
Right.
And so we had a conversation about Florida. I think your parents are from Florida, James. Years ago we had this conversation. But that's how I feel. But if you want to learn about a place, if you really want to have a mind-opening experience, open your eyes, open all your senses to see how things are really different. And that, and what are those takeaways, and how can you be mindful about things that you experience and how those make you feel, and how you can take those experiences forward into your life and what you can learn from them. So that's on kind of a personal development level. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and you really have to hear the stories of the place. We're kind of starving for place. Originally, before the internet, we were kind of starving for place because of a certain homogenization of the United States, same stores or same experiences. I mean, you can argue if that's truly ruins place, but when you travel, you encounter place so powerfully, and if you communicate with that place, the people, the language, just trying, even short trips it's very profound. And how much, and again, I think it's greeted with such a sense of welcome by the residents of that place, and it's this beautiful ancient sharing that goes on.
Absolutely. And in the book, I talk about kind of some of the hotspot expat digital nomad hubs, right? Chiang
Yes.
Mai, Thailand, for one. And
Mm-hmm.
Chiang Mai is a really cool city,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to get out just a little bit
Right.
from some of the stuff in the center, because what you see is people moving from Belgium or the States or wherever,
Yeah.
and they want to have, there's signs of globalization, let's say.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
want to create their cool coffee shop where
Yep.
digital nomads can work, and, you can be there in your kind of internet cafe, as they used to be called. But it's the same kind of thing where you were just really hoping to have a little touch of home in
Right.
Chiang Mai, Thailand,
Right.
or wherever.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and trust me, we need some internet, and we need some good coffee sometimes,
Yeah.
but it's also important to really try to find the authentic places and go where the locals go. That to me is you're really traveling then.
Yeah, and that little touch of home can often become like a reproduction of everything about home and why'd you leave. There's these aspects as well of globalization. But you have so many cool phrases in your book. I mean, it's really well written in a way that, like needles, that you remember and retain, but also that move. And I wanna just compliment you on that. There's a couple that come to mind, like stop being busy. Like you could put the book down there and be like, okay, I got it. I mean, I don't know if I got it, but I'm on my way. And or escape more, spend less. These little. So it's a short book, but it's really precise and moving in that way. So I wanna thank you for. I know that takes a lot of work, or a lot of life in order to have that into the book eventually. It's reflecting all of your journeys over the years and reflection on that.
No, thank you. And I'm really big on, when I speak colloquially, I have a lot to say and a lot of words.
Right.
But when I try to get that down on paper, I hope, James, if you go through and finish the rest of the book.
No, I
if
finished.
you see any
I
extra words, you did. Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell me if there are any extra words in that book, because I don't want them there, because I am then wasting people's time. And if I can get little nuggets and little gems to stick in people's head,
right.
That's powerful. To me, that's good writing.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I tried to, when you said, oh, it's a short book, I thought, God, I spent 2 years on that book. How did it become short? But I'm glad that I kept it brief.
Well, I meant short in the sense of you don't have to, it's not Tolstoy, right? It's not 700 pages. But,
sure.
But it's long in impact, really. And just so people know that I did read the book, but Matt's referring to a time where I've been waiting for certain borders to open and my life to start again. And I was so inspired by the first part of the book that I had to put it down and come back to it. But now that the announcement was made, I dove back in and read it all. I do want to ask you two quick questions about the book before we get an update on Under30 Experiences now in this COVID landscape, hopefully post-COVID landscape. The first one is just about your experience. When you started this company about 6 years ago, if I'm not doing my math right.
So when so 2012, so going on 8 years now, you think, God, how quickly did they start it? And we thought, I went in March of 2012 to Iceland, and I thought I could turn around. I called Jared, my business partner, that we could turn around a trip to Iceland in 2.5 months.
Wow.
And we put it for sale, and we ended up selling it and filling the group in 2.5 months.
Incredible.
Flight prices went up on the people. We had no idea what we were doing. We don't plan anything. It's not like 18 months out now. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, about 8 years.
Well, so the question I'm wondering is about the scrolling aspect that you see now more than ever, or the capturing aspect that you see now more than ever. We lived in a tourist heavy place in New York, down by Wall Street, And then when I go back and visit that place, I mean, you see, I mean, we always saw, of course, domestic and international tourists, but now sometimes you see them where they spend more time WhatsApping the photo they just took to their friend back in wherever they live, rather than being there. So I'm wondering, from your point of view, as you construct these experiences, is that something you've had to, when people who join these experiences, are they already on board and they're like, I'm done with this phone for a while? And I'm not saying you don't go online or contact people, but it's this dominance of wanting to kind of capture and share right away. So I'm wondering if you've noticed that, and how do you kind of deal with that as an organization, because you don't want it to take away from giving to each other or to themselves or to the place? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we had one of our trip leaders put it really well. He wrote a blog post, and he wrote something like, take the photo and then put that shit away. And that was kind of what he would tell his groups. And look, guys, I'll bring you to the most beautiful places he ran trips in Peru and Costa Rica and all these amazing, especially Machu Picchu. It's impossible to take a bad picture unless it's completely fogged in.
Right.
And you just want to keep taking pictures because everything is so visually appealing. Right. But then what you do is you end up experiencing it through your phone and not actually through your own eyes. Right. And so we're just trying to make sure people know that. And luckily, a lot of the places that we go are off the beaten path. And well, there used to never be 4G at Machu Picchu. Now there is, right? So people don't have that immediate connectivity. A lot of times what we'll see is, we got to the restaurant and then everybody's on their phone, and we'll even say do your check-in with friends or family or whatever you need to do. Right. But then let's be present. And some groups will even agree, we'll put our phones away completely. It's really nice when some people say, I don't want to be on my phone because I'm going to get the notifications from work, and I'm away, and I'm going to take pictures, but I'm going to be in airplane mode the whole time. Nice. And when you have that type of leadership on a group from a member, that really goes a long way. So just being aware is half of the problem, I think. Yeah. And so just trying to strike a balance. And I guess I'll also say I've probably even used this made-up term, Instagrammable, already on the podcast, right? Or I referred to Iceland as being Instagram famous. And that can ruin places as well. So lately I've been a lot more reluctant to geotag places, especially for people who have larger followings. I think it's important. And then just sometimes keep some stuff for yourself. I think that's important. And then we try to get people off the beaten path where, all right, you took the photos. We know, our guides know where the photo op spots are. And then let's go over here somewhere and else. Let's just hang out. Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, you should write down before we end, 4G at Machu Picchu is a great book title. That's a great book title. And you could, maybe a collection of sayings related to travel. You're so good at that. But 4G at Machu Picchu, that sounds cool. But it sounds horrible, as if you're saying, or I'm saying you don't want people to share. That's not it. But it's not so much the photos anymore. It's the photo and then share, and the photo and then share, and being, in WhatsApp conversations with your friend that you're 10,000 kilometers away, and so you're not even here with these other people. And we talked about the importance of having discussions and connections with local communities. So that really connectivity is it's a really powerful influence now. And you see it even in places like New York, which are incredible cities to visit. But when they're there, people are they can't disengage. And I just thought, I was curious about your perspective. So thanks for sharing that.
Totally, and I'll you can get your phone stolen in a lot of places because of this. People, Machu Picchu, I think outlawed selfie sticks because people are losing eyes.
Falling off the cliff.
Falling off a cliff. Like this kind of stuff happens. Like if you one more example just because it's just so interesting to observe people in these types of scenarios. So if you hike the Inca Trail 4 nights, 3 days, or 4 days, 3 nights, you come through the Sun Gate and then you descend upon Machu Picchu for sunrise as it opens up.
Incredible.
But so we're descending. I'm hiking with the group and we're descending down, and we look like hell. You know, we've been in the Andes for 4 days.
Yeah.
And coming up from Aguascalientes, the town there where everybody spends the night before they come up to Machu Picchu in the bus, right? They didn't do the work. These ladies are dressed to the night because everyone wants to look cute for the Machu Picchu picture.
Right.
So I'm with
staged.
This group. Yeah, 70% and sweaty, no makeup, all of this. And our girls on our trip were so salty seeing the girls who didn't work at all to get to they didn't earn their trip to Machu Picchu. You know, they came on the bus and they looked perfect. And here we are, you know, looking like hell. And they said, no, you know what? I'd way rather look sweaty and disgusting like I've been in the Andes for 4 days than look perfect in front of my, you know, on my Instagram. So I just thought that was a funny little aside.
That's a funny, and it's the experience. Yeah, I mean, you want to have the experience, not just capture the image and share it right away and walk away. Anyways, it's just an interesting aspect of travel nowadays. And then the last thing before we leave the book and just get an update on Under 30 Experiences in these during these times. And you talked about this in your book, but I'm curious. You talked about the struggle you had about calling it millennial travel guidebook. And so I wonder if you want to talk about that. Like, what were you thinking about doing? What was the struggle you had? What were you going for in naming it that, as opposed to some of the other connotations? Or I know you don't want to have it as just for a certain age group, but I just wanted to have you, since we are talking to you, have you talk about that process and ultimately why you chose that, why it was right, what maybe that generation offers that you were trying to hook into for everybody. So I just thought it was came to mind.
No, thanks for bringing that up. So just like, we'll start here. Under30CEO.com, which we ended up selling, and that was created by two guys drinking Miller Lights in Poughkeepsie, New York, at 22 years of age. Right? I hope I haven't touched a Miller Lite since then, but that's why that name came about, because we were like, well, 30, that's a long way away. You know, here I am at 34 and almost aged out of the 21 to 35-year-old demographic that we bring on our trips. Now, that demographic is a really nice demographic because people are young, they're active, they're still in good health. They can do these hikes and they want to connect. And there's a certain, 21 to 35, you learn a lot, but you can still probably you can relate to somebody. Most of our, average age or median age is maybe 27, 28. They've got a little bit of money from working for some years. But that's why we went after that kind of demographic, honestly, just because it's a fun demographic. Now, with the book, I realize that while I will be a millennial for the rest of my life, for better or worse, right, that our company will not always serve millennials. So we're paying attention more to the Gen Z people coming up and the TikTokers and all of this. So, but what I wanted to do for this first release of the book is the business play was try to own the words millennial and travel, and be on the top of all the search engines. So when someone types in millennials and travel or group travel millennials, that they would find us, or they would read the book, or they would download the free chapter on how to find flights, how to find the best deals on flights. And that was the real play. But I wanted to, James, I don't know if you identify with the term millennial, but it also has a lot of baggage. And so you kind of roll your eyes about, oh, here are these entitled kids who have been given a trophy for everything. But, read a couple of the stories in the book of the trouble I've gotten myself into. There's no participation and there's no participation trophy going through San Pedro Sula, Honduras on a bus,
Right.
going on
Right.
that kind of trip. So, and that's not what we sell at Under 30, but you can get way off the beaten path into some really interesting places and experiences in the world. And Millennial has a lot of baggage, but I think anybody, as you said, it's a life book, and it's not, right? You mentioned just had a kid. We're not going to stop traveling. Yeah, we're pausing for a little bit. It's COVID. But we're still going to live this lifestyle, and so anybody can benefit from it. Although, the title is aimed at millennials.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been lucky because I've been involved in education and academic life for 20-something years. So I've been insulated from a lot of the negativity around the term millennial, which was why I thought it was interesting that you ran into this. But I think as a Gen Xer, the perspective you bring about, especially financial, but also the larger ones about living life in a different way that maybe hadn't occurred to Gen Xers, everything from the way you approach renting versus owning and making opportunities that are now available, making the most of them. It's for any age. It's for any age, and it's a really powerful message. And that came out of your generation that was maybe more connected and more open. So it's offering not only influence to the younger, but people who are older who maybe hadn't thought like that before. And I thought you did that well in the book. And, we're running out of time here, but I did if you wanted to give us an update, I saw on I think it was your Instagram, that you are organizing an Under 30 experience to a place that is very, very, very deeply connected to me. Goes back 30 years, and that is Joshua Tree, California.
Ooh.
So I lived in the mountains above Joshua Tree. I taught out at the University of Redlands and worked there for many years. It's an incredible part of the country. So can you give us an update on the Under 30 experiences that are going to be U.S.-centric? I think you have the 2 coming out soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So, James, as we're recording this, you probably know, well, you're lucky enough to be overseas at the moment, but well, here I am, and we're not welcome very many places. But good for us here in the States, we have an amazing backyard. I mean, we have a massive country with so much to see, and it's very underappreciated. It had been very trendy to go and travel abroad, something that, in my opinion, traditionally Americans didn't really do all that much of. It was expensive to go to Europe, right? Yeah. It's expensive. Yeah. Like, people didn't just travel to Latin America unless you were really a true hardcore traveler years ago. But now it's opening up, and but going, what's getting hot right now are RVs and road trips and taking advantage, getting some space for people, social distancing. And so this fall, we have a handful of trips out right now that we were able to turn around pretty quickly. We started with some just 4-day trips, Portland, Maine to Acadia National Park.
Wow. Yeah.
Asheville to the Great Smoky Mountains. Yeah, things that people could still drive to. But a couple nights of camping, 1 night in the city, San Francisco to Yosemite. And so we rolled those out. They sold out for this fall. Amazing. And then we're just about to launch as well. We have LA with a night camping at Joshua Tree and a night in Palm Springs.
Wow.
Then we've got San Francisco to Tahoe for a little winter wonderland excursion. And then got one more. Las Vegas up to Zion and Bryce Canyon National Parks.
Wow.
So just some underappreciated places, I think, that we got more on the horizon for 2021. So we're trying our best to be safe, yet get out there. And community is really what we focus on within our community of travelers, and people need that connection. So
Yes.
of course people are going to be wearing their masks and stuff like that, but these parks are at half capacity, a lot of them reservation only. The wildlife is out. Our guide out in Yosemite was saying she's never seen more bears in her life because it's not overrun with people. So we're excited. I'm going to take a road trip this fall as well, and hopefully spend a month touring around the States. So it's a lifestyle.
Well, I love these videos they had. I don't know if there's common anymore, but they had videos of alligators wandering through the strip malls of, I think it was Louisiana, and deer hanging out because these parking lots are empty and they're walking through these open malls. It's pretty interesting. But it's really exciting to hear that, because we are starving for contact and experience of things we can touch and experiences we can share. And part of the great thing I think about your venture is that we've been talking a lot about the personal and what effect it can have on a person and ultimately who they maybe come in contact with later. But it's doing these things, and more than I do, in a group that you're leading of strangers. There's something very beautiful about sharing it in the moment, whether it's the hike to Machu Picchu or spending the night in Joshua together. Those conversations, even though we're lucky to be talking from thousands of kilometers away right now, but it's not the same as just sitting under the stars in Joshua Tree and talking about it with people who are you're becoming friends. It's great to hear that they're booked, because it gives me hope, that we'll keep finding this connection even in this post-COVID difficulties.
Absolutely, James. So off camera, I think you said something like our time in New York, while it was short, it was profound. And that's what we like to think about our trips. So hopefully people go, and, just that surge of inspiration for people then to go back home and hopefully be more sustainable, take better care of themselves, their environment, and get outdoors more, be more active. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah. Well, do me a favor, and whoever's leading the Portland, Maine, make sure they bring with them Longfellow's famous poem about the lighthouse, the Portland Lighthouse. It's incredible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you'll probably,
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, you'll probably see it. And is there anything else you want to update people on, and including how to best follow or sign up for more information? Or I don't know if I think you'd mentioned they're all sold out now, but how do they not get on? How do they get on future trips? Anything else we need to just make people aware of, besides the fact that your book comes out August 13th, and we have the link below to the Millennial Travel Guidebook? But anything else you want to just update us on before you go that we missed?
No, James, it's been a pleasure to catch up. Again, people can check us out, Under30Experiences.com or Under30Experiences on Instagram. But the book it's pre-order for 99 cents right now on Kindle. We're just trying to get as many people. I'm the only person crazy enough, I think, right now to be launching a book, launching a travel book. Right. So at least there's not going to be a lot of competition. So we're just trying to get it in as many hands, as many people. And hey, if they like it, they'll spread the word. They'll write good reviews. And so they can get it for 99 cents, millennialtravelguidebook.com, or they can just download a free chapter on how to find the best flights. So that's it. Would love to have anybody who wants to reach out personally. They can maybe send me a message on Instagram, Matt Wilson TV, and that's it. Just grateful to catch up with you, James, and so happy you enjoyed the book. That really means a lot.
Yeah, I really did, and it's really worth it. And it's very timely. I know you joked about maybe not the best time to start a travel book, but it's more than that, and it's exactly the stories we need to remind ourselves now, because these days will pass, and we can't. As you said, I think toward the end of the book, the most important lesson you learned, don't give up, and we can't give in So now more than ever, I think it's time to read books like this, because these times will come, and we need to seek these experiences. And before I go, I just wanted to ask you, someday I hope you will write a sequel, and I think you should call it a family's, what did I have written down? A family's guidebook to travel, or a family's travel guidebook, because now you have this beautiful new daughter, and I think that's needed. You know, because sometimes people think you leave that behind in your wild younger days, right? But I think it's needed, especially for younger families with younger children.
I want to prove them wrong.
Yes, exactly.
4G at Machu Picchu, that's all you need, James.
Yeah. Well, that's probably another book. That's your memoir, maybe. but I would love to see you do a family's travel guidebook. That would be cool. So thank you so much for spending some time. Stay safe, and say hello to your beautiful daughter and to your wife. And I hope you enjoy Austin, and that things, return to some normalcy rather quickly in this post-COVID world. But I really personally appreciate the time. I followed your story, obviously through connections over the years, and it's just great to have this time to talk to you at this point where you're releasing this book, which is so much of your story over all these years, and it's a great offering for people. So thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you, James. My pleasure.
Okay, if you're new to the channel, again, please subscribe, and we have links below to Matt's book, The Millennial Travel Guidebook. And we will also link to his website below.